Welcome to the module on roles and responsibilities of risk managers of the online short course on risk management for food safety. This is the first of 3 content-specific modules explaining different aspects of risk management in the context of food safety. Note that this risk management course has been developed by the TARTAR project that is led from The Ohio State University, and also that it is a companion course to online short courses on topics such as decision-making, risk assessment, and risk ranking. My name is Leon Gorres, and I'm a consultant on the TARTAR project. I gratefully acknowledge Lucia Annelich of Annelich Consulting in South Africa and Ilse, based in Washington, for making slides available for this module from a taught course that they have developed under auspices of FAO. I've kept most of the original layout of their slides, but tailored the content to our online short course. On behalf of the TARTAR project, I would like to thank you for joining this short course and wish you a very good learning experience. In this lecture, we will start with a short look at the risk analysis framework overall. Then we will zoom in on the risk management component to explain what risk management is about in the context of food safety. Having a better understanding of food safety risk management, we will then review the roles and responsibilities of those that conduct risk management, the risk managers. This figure depicts the risk analysis framework, and it emphasizes that risk assessment is a science-based process, whereas risk management is a policy-based decision-making process. As can be seen, there is a direct interaction between risk assessors and risk managers. However, in this short course, the focus will be on risk management. After all, risk management is driving the overall risk analysis process, taking input from risk assessment where deemed appropriate for informed decision-making. Note that the key principles of risk management will be discussed in Risk Management Course Module 3, and that there is a companion online course on risk assessment. Risk analysis is not only an analysis. It is also a decision-making framework that helps risk managers to select effective control measures that will ensure that consumers are appropriately protected against foodborne diseases. The control measures that risk managers consider for the mitigation of food safety risks are often called control options. We will look at these in particular in this risk management short course. In the context of the World Trade Organization and Codex Alimentarius, the formulation of what is called the appropriate level of protection, or ALOP, is an important aspect of risk analysis. ALOPs and other public health goals are important as they may provide quantitative metrics or benchmarks for food safety. In this short course, we will not discuss them further. For additional reading, consider the Food Safety Risk Analysis Guide. This guide has been issued by FAO in 2007. It's still timely, and you can see the reference in the link on the slide. As adopted and advocated by Codex Alimentarius, the risk management component of risk analysis is made up of 4 subcomponents or steps, as it is illustrated here in this graphic. The process starts with preliminary risk management activities, goes on to the identification, evaluation, and selection of risk management options. Then follows the implementation of risk management decisions or risk management options. The last step is that of monitoring and review. These steps are briefly presented in Module 3 of this risk management short course, which explains the principles but also the typical risk management process. Here we see the rather long-winded Codex Alimentarius definition of risk management, which has been taken from the 26th Codex Alimentarius procedural manual that has been published in 2018. This definition makes it clear that risk management deals with the evaluation of public health and fair trade policies. It is a societal process involving all interested parties such as consumers and industries. It may involve the commissioning of a risk assessment and the selection and implementation of control options based on risk assessment outcomes. This selection is influenced by weighing different policy alternatives, and these may actually not all be based on scientific factors. They may, for instance, consider technical feasibility or economical impacts of selecting certain options. It may be that the risk manager believes that the most appropriate option is to do nothing. This may, for instance, be the case when there are no political or scientific arguments to support implementation of a particular control option, or when such a control option would be too costly, not feasible maybe. It may also be that the established level of risk is considered acceptable at the moment maybe by the risk manager. So what is risk assessment about? Whilst Codex Alimentarius goes to great length explaining what risk management stands for, its definition of risk assessment merely states that it consists of 4 steps that together analyze the risk situation at hand in a systematic way. It considers what can go wrong, which is step 1, hazard identification. How likely is it to happen? These are steps 2, which is exposure assessment, and step 3, hazard characterization. And finally, if it does happen, how bad will it be? This is part of step 4, the risk characterization step. Overall, risk assessment describes the likelihood and severity of harm due to hazards in foods. And these hazards can be, for instance, chemical, microbiological, or physical in nature. Please check out the companion online course on risk assessment for more details on this part of risk analysis. Let's now turn to the role of government in food safety risk management. At a country level, this risk management is part of the overall role of the government. The government that aims to protect their population from illness that could be passed through food. The government ensures or helps ensure that the locally produced or imported foods are safe. And they also strive to maintain confidence in internationally traded foods for economical reasons. In this context, typically, risk management involves governmental risk managers, food safety regulators, or policymakers that all use the risk analysis framework for decision making. Those decisions will be related to food safety, but they could be taken at very high level, so for instance on policies for safety and public health, for establishing food law or food safety standards. But they also could be at very detailed practical level, directly related to particular industries or particular consumer groups. A key responsibility of risk managers in government is to drive the risk management process, to help them set public health goals, to prioritize risks, or to develop risk management options where they think risks need to be mitigated. Based on preliminary data available, they may establish a rough risk profile or use other approaches to characterize their understanding of the food safety situation at hand. Given their understanding of the risk situation, but also the urgency and possibly available resources, risk managers decide whether a risk assessment has to be conducted or not, for them to take an informed decision. A risk assessment may be commissioned when it is needed to get a better view on risk and mitigation options. When a risk assessment is required, risk managers are responsible for the formulation of concrete questions, which the assessors then need to answer. Whether or not a risk assessment has been commissioned, it is the responsibility of the risk manager to decide whether a risk situation needs mitigation or not, and which, when any, control options need to be implemented. In practice, such decision-making is often on the basis of available scientific advice or knowledge, rather than a systematic risk assessment that may take time to be compiled and to gather additional information on the scientific level or the scientific level. Factors to consider in decision-making are, for instance, the feasibility of mitigation and control options in terms of cost and time. The means available for communicating mitigation considerations and control options to stakeholders along the food value chain. But also the need to support the communication of control options to food industry with technical documents, such as codes of practice that may help the industry to implement the control options. Once risk managers have made a decision on a risk situation, it is their sole responsibility to communicate their decisions to all relevant stakeholders, particularly those who have to execute the control options, which often are part of industry, or those affected by the control options being implemented, which sometimes are consumers. On this slide, you see a number of examples of risk management options. Note the diversity of types of options. Some are technical, but others are a regulatory action, or they relate to education and information of consumers. One or a combination of these options may be selected by a risk manager to achieve the desired level of risk mitigation. For example, to mitigate the risk of certain microbiological hazards, a risk manager may mandate that the affected food industry includes a particular processing step, such as, for instance, pasteurization or cooking of the food. Maybe additional control options are required, such as product labeling or education of consumers regarding food preparation and hygiene. We have just discussed the role of government in risk management. Also, food industry has important responsibilities for the management of food safety risks. Note that the term food industry is used here in its widest sense, so also covering all businesses from primary production over processing, manufacturing and retail to food service and restaurants. First and foremost, food industry has to ensure that the food products they put on market are safe and suitable for human consumption, at least when used as intended. So possible food safety risks have to be identified and mitigated. As part of this responsibility, food industry has to ensure that food service staff and consumers receive clear and easily understood information about their products, such as appropriate instructions for use and preparation by food service staff and consumers. Also in food industry, there are roles with responsibility for managing food safety risks. These would typically be part of product innovation, food safety, or quality assurance groups. Risk managers in food industry may not be responsible for setting public health targets and decide on acceptable risks, such as governmental risk managers, but otherwise their roles and responsibilities are quite comparable. In summary, risk management is driving risk analysis where it is used for public health protection and fair trade relating to food and food safety. Risk managers are in the driving seat. They are responsible for making decisions on the acceptability of food safety risks and the need to mitigate risks. Risk managers may use available scientific information or systematic risk assessment outcomes for their decision-making. Risk managers are responsible for stakeholder communication, like consultation of stakeholders, but also for instructing food industry and consumers on the implementation of measures to mitigate risks and the consequences thereof. Finally, the roles and responsibilities of risk managers in government and in food industry have many elements in common, although they discharge these responsibilities in a very different context. This risk management short course module has been compiled using slides from a course developed originally by the Industry Council for Development and endorsed then by FAO and WHO. In 2017, the International Life Science Institute, ILSI, updated this course under auspices of FAO. Lucia Annelich, food safety consultant from South Africa, has been leading that update. And I sincerely thank Lucia and ILSI for making the updated slides available to the TARTAR project. And I thank you for joining this course module on roles and responsibilities of risk managers in food safety. Please note that 3 other modules of this course are available: the Introduction, Module 1, Risk Management Principles, Module 3, and Use of Risk Assessment in Risk Management, the final module, number 4. You can access all risk management modules and other short courses of TATAR following the link shown on this slide. On behalf of the TATAR project, I would like to thank you for joining the short course and encourage you to attend the other modules and courses as well.